A while ago, I noticed that I'm becoming a little bit more calm and content with my general life decisions. And I started to wonder what has led to that development. When being asked in an application form for an art market whether I would also want to help organize the event, I chuckled while, without any remorse, checking the box for a heartfelt no. And there it dawned on me. Saying no more often since I'm getting older, more decisive, and most importantly, more selective with how I spend the little time I have on Earth is most likely what keeps me much more at ease these days. Life is short and there are just so many yeses we can utter and stick to until we are at the end of it. Thus today I would love to talk about why you should say no more often as well and why it actually means to say yes. Before we can make the firm decision to say no though, we have to understand why we are so inclined to say yes all the time. As with most things in life, our behavior is shaped early on in our childhood. For most children, saying no to their parents or teachers is unthinkable, as it can lead to less time on the console and fewer toys under the Christmas tree. On the other hand, saying yes means to please our parents, that are our only care and pocket money givers. So we want to please them as often as we can to have a better chance at survival and to look better off on the schoolyard. And talking about survival, as the social creatures that we are, we have an instinctive need for connection to other human beings. And that need drives us to look for approval and base our decisions on empathy and the sense of duty. If we want to admit that or not, we depend on others. And that dependency can backfire if we let it run wild without any boundaries. It also might be hard to say no because it feels like acknowledging your own limitations. Even if unfounded, if you say no to an added burden, you seem to somewhat automatically admit that you are not capable of carrying it, and that can seriously kill the mood. Thus, low self-esteem, troubling environments, hardened survival mechanisms, cultural expectations, and even gender roles can make of us first a parent and later on a full-fledged people pleaser. But however achieved, if by now you already have developed tendencies to be a people pleaser, it's time to not forget the most important person in the room to please first. No, not your mom. It's yourself. Sorry, Mom. Every time you say yes to one thing, you automatically are saying no to another. And most often, you say no to yourself. Your own needs, your own desires, and most importantly, to your boundaries. Saying no is really about setting boundaries. And those are incredibly crucial for your sanity and to not get raided by squirrels. Hey, you are gravely overstepping the boundaries of my territory here. This is my stash. I said no. And now the opposite is true as well. Every time you say no to one thing, you actually say yes to another. Like yes to more balancing downtime when saying no to extracurricular assignments. Yes to your beach body when saying no to ice cream. And yes to your niece when saying no to helping your colleague to move in with their third new girlfriend in the span of just 1 year. But I can never stress enough the importance of balance. You can't just say no all the time. Finding out why, when, and how saying no is a valid and advantageous option is a skill that, like any other skills, requires practice and quite some trial and error. There will be times where you say no and you figuratively deal yourself a slap in the face for a missed opportunity. It happens to the best of us, but spoiler alert, life goes on. Now I've already touched on why to say no, and it mostly boils down to your mental and emotional well-being. With saying no in a professional setting, you prevent burnout and ensure quality over quantity. Because you save your energy for just a few things that you can then give 100% to. And in a private setting, you save your time and energy for the things that truly matter to you. It's important to stay true to yourself and your own desires, rather than others' expectations. Because life is not really livable any other way. By saying no, you assert the control needed to make meaningful choices. And most importantly, to not breed resentment in you. And let's be honest, nobody likes a resentful helper who shows up but looks at you funny. Making space with saying no means that you can fill that space with something that you really want to say yes to. Maybe even something unexpected that needs an empty slot to fill spontaneously. Now, if someone at the table asks you for the salt, saying no is just rude and overly dramatic. Thus, saying yes instead is the right thing to do in that and also in many other cases. Given that you didn't say no because you merely are concerned about your partner's sodium intake, but keeping the good old balance in mind, you should never say yes when the action that follows compromises your values. It shows good character to maintain your integrity, even when being pressured in any way. Saying no becomes even more crucial in a work setting though, as it can greatly influence how your career unfolds. A request doesn't align with your personal goals? Say no. You already have enough on your plate? Decline. An inquiry simply doesn't interest you? Move on to something that actually does. Especially as young artists that are just starting out, we think that we have to say yes to everyone and everything to earn our place. But that can quickly lead to selling yourself repeatedly short, into a feeling of low self-worth that sticks with you like warm chewing gum, to working a whole year completely for free as a concept artist on an unknown game, and to going straight to the hospital for stress-induced acute pancreatitis in your early 20s. I chose these very specific examples for a reason. Saying no as an artist means to not take every commission and follow every trend that actually dilute your own vision. If you want to find your own voice, it's important to say no to a lot of offers that might look like opportunities at first, but are actually a devastating distraction in sheep's clothing. One of my own work boundaries is that I don't take appointments on the weekend. I like to have somewhat of a work-life balance, and most of my loved ones have a normal 9-to-5 job. The weekend is the only time where I can actively be with them, and thus it's sacred to me. And interestingly, since I have established that early on, no one has ever asked me again to make an exception, and in most cases I wouldn't make one, because exceptions are treacherous little beasts that can sneakily become a new rule. So be careful. I personally say no more and more also to the rat race on social media. I honestly couldn't be bothered anymore to post every day on Instagram or every week here on YouTube. Sure, it might make me grow slower, but in the long run, it's just not sustainable and turns something I actually love into pure torture. Alright, now that we know why and when to say no, it's also important to know how to. As in all areas of life, you should be polite. Spitting a no into someone's face will certainly show them and earn you respect. But it's the kind of grudgingly given respect that you really don't want to have around. Be firm and direct, but show some respect yourself while you're at it. Sandwich your refusal between your gratefulness for having been on someone's mind for their request and maybe a good alternative or another possible date if applicable. Furthermore, show empathy about the other person's disappointment. But beware of over-explaining and justifying yourself. You have a damn good reason and the right to say no, so stand your ground. And don't lie about your reasons either, as this is going to bite you back eventually. Now that you have said no, you might feel remorse and the urge to do a 180 as you see the bewilderment in the eyes of your inquirer. But don't forget, every good no makes room for an even better yes. One that adds actual value, builds relationships, and makes you thrive. Remember that now you can give 100% to the things you do say yes to, because you saved all that energy for the tasks that truly matter. And lastly, keep in mind that you are saying no to a request and not to the person that is requesting. And that's something that the one asking needs to understand as well. If against all odds the inquirer is actually offended, then that's honestly on them and not on you. This might sound harsh, but no one can force you to do anything. And no one should expect you to feel obligated, at least in regard to a lot of things. Except of dying one day, you don't actually have to do anything. Warren Buffett once said, "The difference between successful people and really successful people is that really successful people say no to almost everything." That might be a little extreme for most, but it shows that a well-thought-through no actually leads to clarity and a more direct path to achieving what you want out of life. Saying no reduces stress, sharpens your focus, enhances your confidence, and gives you more time where actually needed. A firm no shows character, integrity, and a strong sense of self-worth through the upkeep of strong boundaries. And by the way, just as great as having boundaries yourself, it's also a fine thing to respect the ones of others. I'm really sorry that I overstepped your boundaries when trying to clean the litter box with you in it. I will make sure to respect your wish for privacy from now on. Okay? Cool. In the grand symphony of life, no is the rest note. It's the pause that allows the music to breathe, to give meaning to the notes that follow. I talked about this in my video about negative space, and also touched on it in my entry about balance. Without those pauses, the melody would be a chaotic and overwhelming mess. And so too, our lives without the occasional no would be a cacophony of foreign obligations and distractions, with the only thing flourishing in it being a nervous breakdown. Saying no is not only okay, but even necessary at times. So say yes only when you truly mean it, and also always in regards to staying curious. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, consider to like and subscribe to help out a new and unknown content creator. But you can also choose not to. I totally respect that. When saying no to extracurricular blah 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 blah. When saying no to extracurricular shit. Okay, this is a tough nut. When saying no to extracurricular when saying no to extracurricular, oh shit, do I need to take speech classes?